didn't hear it evidently.
No, you weren't here yet.
I said,
It says, shall a trumpet be blown in the city, and the people not be afraid? Shall there be evil in the city, and the Lord hath not done it?
Right.
Oh, you know that verse.
Yes, I do.
But tell me what it means.
You want me to dissect each word or?
No.
That's what it says.
I just joking.
I don't know Hebrew or I don't know Greek.
I couldn't do it. I was just joking. I couldn't do it. All I know is it tells me that everything that happens, God has determined it. Whether we call it good or evil or bad, don't make a hill of beans difference. God has done it.
Well, I do agree with that, but
I don't know how else to put it. Told a fellow one time that God had predestinated all things, and he wanted to know if that was true, what was going to happen tomorrow. I said, well, I can't tell you that, but I'll tell you day after tomorrow.
yeah.
That was good.
Yeah, well, I was studying, Brother Robert said to study these confessions, they call them. Philadelphia and London, the last two, I took them to them. I was going down through them and I was reading the proof text. And I said, hey, my proof text. But they seem to make a big, they said the Lord's in charge of everything, created everything. Nothing created he didn't create and all that. And I say, that's good. And then they go off and say, well, man's got free will to do this, like under his permission, or they use these different kinds of words that's not really familiar with me because I don't use them. But I was looking there and they said, you can't associate God with any evil. Isaiah 45 says, I create light, I create dark, I create good, I create evil. I take it what the Bible says, and that's all I know. But apparently I don't know the languages and can't twist it around to make it sound like God's good. God does whatever he wants to do because he's God.
Right.
well, he also determines,
You don't
he
understand
also determines the definition.
Yeah, Brother Cliff, I can tell you that I'm not very happy with the way this election went this year, but I believe everything occurred exactly as God designed it to come about.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't believe
And
that
he sent
I wouldn't
delusion.
have-
He sent
the
delusion to a people.
the flesh ain't always happy with that, but I know it's true that
Yeah.
God controlled it.
I'm not happy either, but it's so.
Yep.
He sent delusion.
Yeah.
And we have to put up with it, but we're going to learn a lot from it. I believe I'm going to learn. Let me just say,
Somebody said to me, what do you think God's trying to teach us in America? I said, well, maybe he's going to try to teach Biden something.
I'm sure he's gonna teach-
We brother, we certainly hope so, don't we?
Yeah, we do. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think he's going to teach me something in this, and I'm looking forward to it. And
You know, I've already learned something from this, and I have just been reminded that we are not of this world. This is not our kingdom. We're not citizens.
Amen.
That's it.
Not too many post-millennialists.
Ooh,
Well, I will say one thing, with all this is happening on, my wife's more political and she knows all this stuff and I don't pay much attention to it. But brothers, I ain't afraid.
Yeah.
Because I believe the Lord will supply, when my fear comes, he'll supply whatever grace it's necessary to get me through it.
I don't believe Mr. Biden could do a single thing that God hadn't ordained for him to do.
that's right.
Yeah. Tracy.
No
No.
more than the devil. That's right.
Right. Guys, one thing to think about as well, though,
What's
you
it?
know, our Lord was crucified. He was killed, and many prophets, the apostles were all killed, and it could be the same with us.
Mhm.
True.
Just because he watches out for us does not mean we will not suffer death
Okay, baby. All right.
or any other calamity.
Come on, Gracie.
Well, didn't somebody call Jesus Beelzebub?
That he cast out demons by the power of Beelzebub, the prince of demons.
Yeah.
Mm,
House
I
divided
should-
against itself cannot stand.
Yep.
I mean, I should be thrilled that he compared me with Jesus by calling me the son of Satan.
He, Brother Doug, you're right. We, in this country, since the 1700s, we haven't experienced any kind of persecution.
No.
And it could be that this is getting ready to be a time of it. It's just hard to say.
Could be.
Yeah, it
Because
is
we
incredible.
don't know.
Right.
With
It's incredibly common around the world.
Absolutely. Why should we think we should be exempt?
That's right.
You'll probably find within 4 years a King James Bible's a hate book.
Yeah.
No. All of them.
Yeah.
Besides some kind of new inclusive translation will be a hate book. They're not even going to take the Revised Standard or the American Standard. They're probably the New English. It's too tough for them.
Bob, my rope ain't that long on the bucket, but I'll go with you.
Somebody mentioned a while ago about winning souls. Somebody would like to elaborate on that scripture,
Which
Does-
scripture?
Hey, brother.
the one that talks about he that winneth souls is wise.
Wise, yes. I've heard that many times.
Who is
We
wise?
know
It's
how the
not
R- yeah. Sorry,
Proverbs 8 will tell you all about wisdom.
what'd you say, Brother John?
a wise man is not from the Adamic side of it, and doesn't say we, it says he.
Yeah.
So I think that pretty well summates who it's speaking of. The
Amen.
Lord's the father of every one of his children.
Amen.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Armenians, you know how they use it.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
We gotta be soul.
Jesus Christ is made unto us wisdom as well as righteousness.
Mhm.
So if he's the wise one and he sheds broad wisdom, his wisdom,
Right.
Gracie, no.
then hey, he's won the souls of all of them that God gave him and made them just as wise as he is.
Mm.
Well, I'll tell y'all something funny, like as being a mother, I had 4 children. I don't want my children to go to hell. So I was I knew what I believed and I believed the truth, but I had to use a little Armenianism on them at times. I didn't like to do that, but I was made to do it, I guess, because I was so afraid they weren't going to believe the truth. And I wanted them to believe it so badly. And then I would tell them things, and they got to rebuking me. And they say, Mama, you do not believe what you think you believe, or you wouldn't be telling us this stuff.
Good for
So
them.
I was so afraid they would not be saved, or they were not called to be saved. And I just lived in that. I kept thinking, I've got to do something to get these children to believe. I didn't have to do anything. All 4 of them are really stronger in it than I am, and I had nothing to do with it, and I
Man.
couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And so I know that if God is going to save a person, there's nothing we can do to save them. Nothing.
That's right.
There is a sort of a promise, I think I called in the scriptures, and I do not know where it is, but you raise up a child in the way they should go, they'll not depart from it.
Yep.
Something like that. And
Yep.
it's just like if Jesus tells you to wash your brother's feet, you don't have to argue about it, what the northern people believe or the southern people believe. If he said do it, do it. That's all I know. And so you ought to raise up your children the best. And the Lord's all control that all the way along the line, but it don't hurt to remind children. And may I remind you, all ancient men ain't wise. So it's good to remind the old folks sometimes too.
I like it.
Well, I believe you are to raise up a child in the way they should go, but it doesn't guarantee they're eternally saved.
No, brother, it does not.
Does not.
Right.
No.
Nope. Nope.
I
believe
have,
it says,
I have two.
except the Lord build the city, they that labor in vain.
Amen.
Yeah, that's right.
Mhm.
Amen. What was it? You were in Acts 13, Brother Robert. Kind of interesting to me there if you read that first verse, and I'm not there, but it talks about Mahon, who was half brother to Herod. And you look at that household, they were both raised in the same environment, they both had the same parentage, they both had the same advantages. Herod was a murderous tyrant, and Mahon was in a little church in Ephesus.
Yeah.
Hmm.
There you
Kind
go.
of like the sheep and the goats, or the wheat and the tares.
Yep. But it's not the external environment that makes a child of God.
Absolutely right, brother.
No.
No.
Look at the sons of David. David had Solomon, and he also had Absalom.
That's right.
Absalom, the devil.
Right.
Solomon, I'm not saying he was perfect, but he was a child of grace.
Right.
Mhm. A man of peace.
And they both had the same advantages.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They're probably raised exactly the same,
That's right. Yeah.
treated exactly the same. It is quite amazing. I had a lot of you don't know this, Brother Lackey, you know it, and Brother Prupchuk, you know it. I had a set of triplets. I had 3 boys all born at the same time, treated them exactly alike, raised them exactly alike. They all 3 were incredibly different. I believe 2 of them are saved or born again, and one he's just completely rejected our family.
Yep.
Why? I don't know.
Yep.
Other than God's determinate counsel, He's determined what happens to us and if we're His children or not. I have no control over it. They've
Yeah, I
been
have,
treated exactly the same.
Well, I have 4 daughters and 1 son, and I know I have a good hope about a few of them. Most of them could argue with you about the doctrine, okay? But I have 1 daughter that rejected. It was almost like anything mom and dad believes or does, I'm going to do it the opposite.
Yeah.
And she has absolutely done that. And although we still speak and we talk, there's no fellowship there at all.
Yes, sir. I know, Brother Gregory, I know exactly what you're talking about. And humanly speaking, you kind of wonder how this could be. And it all comes down to God's grace. He gives
Amen.
some grace and some not.
Mm-hmm.
Some are reprobates.
Yeah.
And much as it hurts us, we
Mhm.
want our children to know God. And
Amen.
I honestly, I don't know if my boys are saved or not, or their wives, but they live lives like that, and we discuss it a lot. We talk about God a lot. We worship together and pray together and all these things. So it's in His hands completely.
I know Paul said to the Thessalonians, knowing therefore, beloved brethren, your election of God. And I've often wondered, was that by inspiration he knew that?
Yeah.
I think it probably had to be.
Because I can't say that about any man.
No. Yeah.
Brother Gregory,
Uh-huh.
may I ask you this? Make your calling and election sure.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to do to change it?
No thing.
Brother John, most of the time I just find myself falling on the mercy and grace of God and pleading for it over and over.
Amen. Yeah.
And one thing I will have to say, being a father myself, of all the things that occur here and there and all we doing comparing and carrying on, one thing that never leaves your heart. And
No,
that's hope. Hope.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh,
Trust in that hope.
amen.
It's a blessed hope, I do believe.
Amen.
If that's all you get out of it, I think you got something very valuable.
Amen. Brother Cliff. Amen.
Hello, Brother J.F. Johnson delivered a beautiful sermon on that. And he says, you can't place yourself in the point of election. It says we can look for evidences.
Right.
And it was a very, very enlightening and comforting message for me to read that and to see that perspective instead of having any doubt, have a reaffirmation of what the testimony of the scripture is relevant to a child of God.
Well, Brother John, I don't know about any other person, but I can readily see it in my brethren more quickly than I can in myself.
Yes. Me too.
I think that is absolutely true. I find myself all the time, Lord, heal my unbelief. But when I look at you all and just the way you speak and the way you talk and the way you communicate, I believe God's grace is on you, but oftentimes we can't see it in ourselves.
That's right. No man knows the heart but God.
Right.
One of our old elders that's been gone for a long time told me one time, he said, long as I think that you're better than I am, and you think that I'm better than you are, we can get along. But when we get to thinking we're better than each other, so that's what you said right there. God has a humble people. They see the fruits of the Spirit in the brethren.
Yeah.
But they, like Paul said, they think they're the least of the chiefest of sinners. And that's the precious part of it.
Yes, it is.
Brother, that's an excellent point. That's a really good point.
It's I was talking about taking a stand last week. When you call to the stand and you made the stand before God's people, that you got a feeling that have more understanding about what's going on or God's word than you do. It's a fearful place to be.
Yeah.
Yep. It is.
Didn't God tell one of the prophets, call thyself not a child? Did he say I'm a child? I don't know. Or am I thinking something else?
I think you're thinking of Jeremiah, I believe, chapter 1.
I think might have been him. In other words, he couldn't go speak because he was just like a little child. And God kind of reprimanded him for that.
Yeah, out of the mouths of babes, all exact praise, he said.
And he said, unless y'all become as little children, you're not going to inherit the kingdom.
That's right.
A child is totally dependent too, aren't they?
Man.
Sure enough.
Yep.
Good evening, Brother Devin.
Good evening. Is it Brother Wayne? Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. And by the way, my son wanted me to tell you, he tried to call your number. He has a 678 prefix.
Okay.
He thought you might not have got it or might have just dumped it because you didn't recognize the area codes.
678. I'm trying to look and see if I got it. Do you know what day he might have called?
He said it'd been close to, I called him tonight just to check, and he said it may have been close to a week ago that he had called.
A week ago. Let me look real quick here.
He also told me to give you his phone number, just in case it'd be easier that way.
Yes, that would be great. I actually don't see it here on my missed calls. I may not have got it, but I'll go ahead and take his number from you.
Okay, give me a second. Go ahead and discuss whatever you discuss, and I'll look it up here. I turned my phone off because it's doing all this dinging.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Cliff talking about confessions. There's your one.
Thanks, Bob. You're
Can you
trying to
see it?
stir things up, ain't you?
Yeah. The Primitive Baptist Confession of Faith of 1900, Fulton, Kentucky.
Go for it.
Otherwise known as the London, Second London with the Fulton footnotes. Now, if y'all want to read something that's gonna tell you why the plain language of the confession doesn't mean what it says, this is it. I mean, they can flat tell you exactly that they didn't really mean what they said. I'll give you one example here. Now, this was all these people that met in 1900 are going to become what we would call conditionalists today. Every one of them. There wasn't a one who we'd call an absoluter or a predestinarian. I'm looking for a specific one here.
Brother Devin, I got that number if you got a pen.
Yep, I am ready whenever you are.
678 478 1175.
1175.
And if
Okay.
you get his voicemail, it'll probably say thanks for calling ABC. Okay. Because
Okay.
he uses it in his business too.
Okay. What was his first name?
Adam.
Adam.
I named him well.
Thank you. I will try and give him a call.
Good, good.
I didn't say that them fellows was wrong, but the scriptures that I read, it was proof text, really didn't mean anything to me. I mean, it was scripture, I understand that, but I looked through every one of them verses and I said, well, I'd have put this one in here. Why did you put this one in here? And they finally come to the conclusion that me trying to add to it, it'd just be more confusion. So I just stopped. And I appreciate you if you're going to, that's your confession and you want to say it. And I probably said, I was trying to think, I think it's called the Apostles' Creed.
Yeah.
A lot of these different churches, they cite it. And I couldn't remember all of it. And it's probably got a lot of truth to it. But I just don't think that if you pin me down and put your hands around my throat and choke me, I'm going to be saying some other confession of London or Philadelphia or anything else. I'm just going to tell you what I do believe. If that ain't good enough for you, then so be it.
Oh, we ought to honor those that go before us, but we ought to not make masters out of any of it.
And that's the whole problem with the Reformed Baptist movement.
It is.
Yep.
Yeah, it is. That's it.
90% of their problem is if it ain't if you don't toe that mark on the 1689 confession exactly the way they think the 1689 authors believed it, you might as well just go somewhere else. 'Cause
Right.
we don't want you. God, the good creator of all things, in his infinite power and wisdom, doth uphold, direct, dispose, and govern all creatures and things, from the greatest even to the least, by his most wise and holy providence, to the end for which they were created, according to his infallible foreknowledge and the free and immutable counsel of his own will, to
Amen.
the praise of the glory of his wisdom, power, justice, infinite goodness, and mercy.
Amen.
Now that's pretty plain language, I'd say.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
And I
Here's the
understand that.
footnote.
Go ahead and
Here's-
spoil it, Bob.
Here's the footnote. Should not be construed to mean that God directs and governs all creatures and things in all they do.
Oh my
You
God.
didn't miss.
They just totally erased the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. They totally just, I mean,
Well, they's defending the honor of God.
yes, they were, weren't they?
What's
You
that?
know,
What's that word that's opposite of exegesis?
eisegesis.
Yeah, that's what they did. It's eisegesis. They put
It
in what
is.
they want to read
It's,
out of
it's,
it.
it's a phenomenal eisegesis. Lord have mercy.
Yeah.
This was the confession of faith of the First Primitive Baptist Church I joined, the conditional church in Oklahoma.
Without the footnotes.
Mm-mm.
With the footnotes?
With the footnotes.
Oh, wow.
Because the guys that had been Primitive Baptists for years, some of them all their lives raised in it, that had taken this pastor under their wing, so to speak, who knew he really didn't believe what was in those footnotes, that he wanted to use the Second London Confession as the church's confession of faith. He told me they almost begged him to use the Fulton, and so he did. Not because he agreed with it, but because they asked him to. And so that's that was my introduction to the Fulton Confession. And I would go through there and read it, and it was little old bitty thing, little old bitty paperback, about yay big and about yay thick, W.S. Craig. I almost had to use a magnifying glass to read it, even with my young eyes when I was about 21, 20. And I was just sitting there shaking my head. And I asked him, why in the world did we have this as our confession? That's what he told me. He said, they asked me to, and so I went along with them.
Well, there's one good thing come out of it, Brother Robert.
Tell me.
Elder Boaz.
Yes, Elder Boaz's little work. Yes,
Yes,
absolutely.
He answered it very thoroughly, I thought.
He did. David Bartley wrote 2 articles
Yes.
on it in the 1900 Signs of the Times as well. And they're very good. Now, to give you a little further history, after the founding pastor of the church left, they called and I say they because I was, though a member, was not involved in it. They called the rankest conditionalist in the state of Oklahoma to be the pastor. And when he found out this was their confession, it was too sound for him.
Oh, Lord.
After they excluded me, He reconstituted the church.
You old
And he
heretic.
wrote the Articles of Faith for it.
Oh, boy.
Because that London, even with the Fulton footnotes, that London Confession, just too absolute.
Brother Lucky, you just an old heretic.
I am. That's what they excluded me for.
Not his judge, but that's the closest he might get to a kingdom.
Seems to be a common thread, brethren, that we have been purged more than we have sought at times. If we stood for what we believe, they say, we'll see you later.
Yep, that's the truth. Well, I got kicked out of better places than that over the years.
That's kind of like a badge of honor, isn't it?
Yeah, it is in a way.
I never got kicked out. They just never would let me join.
You're better off.
I don't mean to, disparage what they're because there's a lot of people that go for those things. It's part of their church or their group or whatever, and they adhere to these things terribly. But I'm often wondering if people ever read them things, or I met an Episcopalian guy one day, and he was talking about the great structure of the Episcopal Church, or whatever it was, and I said, well, what do you think about the 17th article of that church you say you believe in? It's like almost like Christ on earth. And it was to him. And he said, what is that? I said, well, God before anything was created chose to be his people, and the rest he left their own vile destruction.
Right.
And I really don't agree with the last part, but that's my personal belief. I think
Good for
he
you.
control everything. But anyway, he said, "Oh, I don't believe that." And here this guy was saying how great this church was, and a group of them, and what they believed in, and he didn't even know what he believed in.
Mm-hmm.
I hope the Lord never lets me get wandering around, and expounding on stuff that I haven't read or he hadn't talked to me. I know that's a tough thing to say, but you know what I mean, I think.
And those Episcopals not only got the creed in the back of their hymnals or whatever, they got the prayers they're to say and the responses they're to give.
Yeah. Is that the Apostles' Creed? Because I was a Methodist before God revealed himself to me. And we had to, I think I was 11 years old, and we had, you get confirmed, right? I know y'all probably have heard of that or are familiar with it.
Yeah.
In the children of the mother are all confirmed, and we had to memorize the Apostles' Creed.
Well, can you say it for me?
I don't know now.
I couldn't remember it either, but there's probably a lot of good in that creed.
Some of it, I guess.
Which
I was
one you
actually-
want, the Apostles? Go ahead, Brother Devin.
Oh, I'm sorry, brother. I was just going to say, I was actually in the Episcopal Church before I came to the Old Baptist Church, and I actually had a pretty long conversation with they call him the rector and the pastor of the church about predestination and God's sovereign grace, and he referred me to the 39 articles Church of England wrote. Number 17 was brought to my attention. We talked about that a little bit, and it seems like it is referenced in the Episcopal Church, but not upheld as doctrine. And at first I thought, well, I guess there's room for me here. I believe in this article, and I guess that they would accept that and say, I prayed about it for a while. I was like, well, maybe I can stay at home here. And then I soon realized that there was I'm trying to say this as kindly as I can. There was a double standard, so to speak. where, you know, we accept all ideas with regards to theology and doctrine as long as Christ is the Lord. But I soon found that that had an exclusion to it. And the exclusion was that Calvinism, as they called it, not that I would call that the old Baptist faith necessarily, but they said that Calvinism was too restrictive. And I soon realized that I was dealing with a half-truth, so to speak. And that was very alarming because they weren't necessarily kicking me out, but at the same time I was sitting there thinking, what am I dealing with here? Because this is odd. They say that they accept everything, but they really don't. And what's being preached is Arminianism. And that was a intense spiritual battle. I was actually on the vestry, as they call it. The vestry is the elected governing board of the church. And it was a very challenging time for me in that sense, because I had to represent the church while dealing with this spiritual battle. Boy, that was, if you ever have any questions about that, I'll be happy to talk with you further. It was a very challenging time.
Brother Devin,
Yes, sir.
I can understand a good portion of what you're saying. I just hope you get to attend a real good old Primitive Baptist homecoming meeting and then sort out your hierarchy after you've been through that, brother.
Yes, I hope so too. Thank you.
I had a Episcopalian I worked with tell me one time when I was very young, and I was trying to talk to him about the scriptures, and I mentioned, you know, their confession of faith and so forth, and he didn't believe it. He didn't even believe it was in there. That's how much he knew. But he told me, he said, Wayne, you're so narrow-minded you could look through a knot hole in the fence without crowding with both eyeballs, without crowding your brain. And I told him, I said, that's true, because I have nothing but the word of God to go on. That's it. I don't have another source.
Amen. That's good.
I said, Brother Wayne, he didn't call me brother.
That's been my experience with the confessions and all. And I appreciate you turning me on to that, Brother Robert, but I don't think I need to deal with them no more.
Yep.
I'll say, if you're choking me to death, I'm only going to have one confession.
I'm 70.
Comes out of my heart. And Brother Pete, I appreciated your testimony for last week. I did want to tell you that, because it come out of your heart. There was no confessions in London or Philadelphia or Frankfort, Kentucky, or wherever you're from.
As many years as I've lived, however, Brother Robert Flackey, I'd never heard of the Fulton Convention until he taught it on the morning program.
Probably not.
I'd never
It's
heard
pretty
that.
obscure now.
Well, it's a good occurrence to be aware of.
Yes. It answers a lot of questions about what happened to the old Baptist.
Yes, definitely. When I came among the old school, Brother Jim, he told me, that if you hang around long enough, you'll probably hear anything attached to some people called old Baptists. And I found it to be true, but not in a real derogatory way, because the Lord has ways of purging these errors from among us.
Sure.
And God forbid that we think we're on the pinnacle all the time of being right.
Right.
I'm going to catch Bob one of these days, and I'm going to really let him know it.
I remember Brother Barry telling me, I can't remember who it was he was talking to. They said, you know, if the old Baptists aren't right now, they have been, because they believed everything. in the past.
History testifies to it.
Even if they're not right now, they have been.
Yeah,
Enough to eat.
I had my mic muted a while ago. I'm sorry, but when it comes down to it, all we can do is tell our experience of what the Lord's done for us. I can't tell you what your experience is, and it says somewhere there that when a man thinks he knows something, he knows nothing as he ought.
Right.
Until we deliver it, and the Spirit comes to us. And we had when our old elder died back in 85, we was without a elder for a while, and we had used to be a sister church back in the year that came over. The members came to see us one night, and they said they were old Baptists, but they done went the way of the world. They progressive, I guess you'd call them. And something was said about what we believed, and I guess the deacon that was with them said, I could have been anywhere I wanted to tonight except right here. And we're just listening. Well, our 13-year-old daughter was upstairs, and she come running down the steps, and she said, no, you couldn't either, because the proof is you sitting right there. You couldn't have. And so that's it.
Bless her heart.
And they was an arm of our church back 1948. That's when they came out, and they went the way of the paying their pastors and all that stuff. Now it's something else. But anyhow, that's my experience, and the Lord's been good to us. Wow, if we hadn't the wife run across Brother Robert, we met him in West Virginia years ago, and then the wife run across his program on the internet, and then we was able to meet at Cascade last year, and it's amazing how God has his children scattered all over this place.
It
but he
is
brings them
incredibly
together some way,
amazing.
form, or fashion. Yeah.
That's
It's like
it.
we hadn't met Elder Napier there until he came to Cross Lanes up at Hopewell Church year before last to meet Brother Jack Dawsey. And it's amazing how, and now we're sitting here talking over the internet. So it's wonderful.
Isn't it
It's
amazing?
amazing though how when y'all walk in the stands, you can almost feel the whatever. It's some charisma or something there. If you've ever noticed, somebody will get in your stand and you'll think, oh my gosh, they really don't believe what we do. But when I seen the first time I seen Napier, I said, that guy, I mean, he hadn't got 4 or 5 words out of his mouth, but you could see it on him and feel it on him. It's amazing what the Lord gives you to share with others.
Mhm.
That's very Emily, Sister Becky.
Oh, I loved it. I love what you said. You only said 3 or 4 words at first, and I said, oh my gosh. You know.
I was straining that day. Good.
Well, I loved your straining.
Well, I have a strong affection for you people that haven't got the fellowship with you like I wish we could, but
Yeah.
the Spirit bears witness, and if I'm not deceived, I feel
That's
very
right.
close to you.
Yeah.
Brother Napier, which church are you a part of?
Y'all might want to take and blank out of this before Robert gets up too tight, but Welch Tract Particular Baptist Church at Huntington, West Virginia.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I'm not going to take the time to go through this because y'all probably got to go to bed, but on our pilgrimage from Arminianism over into sovereign grace, to come to the realization that we still had a baptism that was not, in our minds, correct according to the New Testament.
Mhm.
And just so happens, somebody sent a copy of Remnant, and Brother Fulton read it, and he said, I think this might be interesting. And long story short, we were a bunch of vagabonds kicked out of the Sovereign Grace and different other little institutions of the world. And we petitioned Brother Robert and Brother Poole. And Lord, I tell you, people, they have got a ton of patience. And we was finally blessed to be constituted as a church at Greenville Park down in Greenup County, Kentucky. And that was back in 1990, I believe.
Brother, I was there with you. Teresa and I were there with you. I think we were baptized in the same day.
Yep, same
Yeah,
time.
and well, now here's the irony, Brother Doug. I told my wife, I said, I want to swing by this motel parking lot down here for just a minute. And who was backing out with the tag on from South Carolina? I said, follow me. Now you tell me that God doesn't predestinate every little thing.
Yes, sir, brother.
And it was a sweet time. I can't fathom going through something like that again. It was beyond all worldly comprehension.
Yep.
It was beautiful.
Yep.
Brother John Krupchuk was there,
Yep.
Brother Robert, and we had several from the Snow Hill Church that attended, and Brother Frank Atkins from Welch
Yep.
Track.
Brother Larry Barton and Marilyn were there. That was a wonderful time.
Well, I'll tell you what, if heaven got any better, I don't know if I could have stood it.
Yeah. You know, humanly speaking, Brother Napier, it seems like all that stuff to me was just pure accidental, humanly speaking.
Right.
Brother Burton had turned me on to Brother Poole, and I called Brother Poole one night and asked him, I said, Brother Poole, I don't think my baptism's right. I said, I come from a Sovereign Grace church, very much like your past. And I said, would you baptize my wife and I? And he said, Brother Doug, there's nothing to prevent me from doing that. And so we met there along with you all. And it was just a great, wonderful time.
You remember, dear brethren, it started off like a Methodist revival because it was pouring. Now, wait a minute, Brother Boswell. Let me explain myself. When we went to the water's edge, it was raining cats and dogs. We all got sprinkled before we got baptized.
Oh, Lord.
Brother, that water was cold.
Well, yeah, I guess it was, but I didn't care.
No, I didn't care either. It was nothing going to stop me.
I was getting rid of that old baptism I had, brother, and
It's
I
kind
was
of like
looking
washing
forward
it
to
off.
it.
Brother Doug, it didn't feel cold to me.
Yeah,
'Cause
you weren't
didn't
in
go
it.
in.
You weren't in it. I'll tell you what, you stayed in it as long as me and Brother Poole were in there. It didn't seem cold at all after you
Y'all
were
got
there a
kind of
while.
used to because y'all were in there a while.
Those
we
real blue
baptized
buds that come out.
17. We baptized 17 that day.
Yeah, that was a sweet day.
Him on the left and me on the right. He said, I don't think I can baptize this many. You're gonna have to help me. I said, well, what do you want me to do? He said, I'll put them down, you lift them up.
Wasn't none too fast either.
I was young. I mean, I working out at the gym and things like that. So I'll tell you what, baptized 17 at one time like that. I wonder about them when they get into the hundreds,
Hmm.
how they felt, because I was sore the next day. I'll admit it.
I wonder how John the Baptist was, because he baptized many.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And you got,
He had a diet a little bit different than,
Yeah, that
you
is true.
think?
Way to go, Cliff. All natural.
All right, next time there's going to be a mass baptism like that, I'll spend a month eating locusts and wild honey and see if it's any better.
So the Reformed Brethren, they claim that 3,000 being baptized on Pentecost Day was impossible.
Mhm.
That's why they say that they were sprinkled.
Yes. Well, if there's one person dipping them, it might be a problem. They doesn't say only one person dipped them.
Right.
We're not told how many they each of them took. Man, there might have been 100 baptizing 30. That
Right.
ain't much.
It might have been some quick authority delegated that day.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Be nothing wrong with it.
No, there wouldn't. But yeah, that was a beautiful time of it. I'm here to tell you that was a glorious
Yeah.
meeting. I just kept wondering if I was going to get there. It's about 1 o'clock in the morning before I showed up.
So you didn't get any sleep that night.
Yeah,
Not
I
much.
did.
Did
Yeah, I did. What I got, I guarantee you. Boom. I was tired. That's before they built 68. We coming down 64.
Wasn't I with you, Brother Lackey?
Yes,
Going
you were
down?
with me.
Yeah. I
Brother
thought
Napier, what year was that?
90.
1990.
1990?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's 30. That's hard to believe. That's 31 years ago.
Yeah.
My.
Flew by.
31 years I've been knowing y'all.
Thanks, brother. It ain't been peaches on our end either.
Well, I guess knowing you has been more than that because I knew you before you were
Yeah.
constituted.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this. Brother Jim was a man that he took the advantage of the moment. Because nowadays, if you tell people you want to constitute a church, you better get out of the way. And Brother Jim, I think, took about 3 years. He says, now we're about ready to consider this. And you know what? It was wise. And I'm
It was.
surprised it was done as quickly as it was. I can't relate how ignorant I was. And I thought I was on top shelf among the sovereign gracers. And I did. I mean, I could rub elbows, any of them big dogs, you know. But brother, when he got down to the point that this thing was absolutely in the hands of God and he didn't need no preacher. I've got horses. And I get reminded every time I walk in the barn, he call one of them preach better than you. So, you know, you walk humbly before your Lord after you realize that.
Amen.
Amen. Mhm.
Brother Napier, how long did y'all meet before you were constituted?
3 years.
3 years?
Yep. Brother Lackey and Brother Jim would come over and I'm gonna be honest with you. I was probably about as steep in a dispensationalist as you'd come across. I've got a whole shelf of books back here that I'd be glad to take and let anybody have if they need to start good old far with. But when I finally, and in their loving kindness, I mean, they didn't set me down and slap me,
Right.
but they just gently, well, you need to really consider this. There's two covenants. And me and J.R. Graves just thought, these boys have missed out on something.
5 covenants to be exact.
Hey,
Yes.
that's where I came from. That's right. J.R. Graves was worshipped.
There you go.
Yeah.
And what a relief it is to be delivered from that stuff, brother. And I my heart goes out to people that are still entwined in it, because you're missing your king's already been king and
Amen.
crowned.
Amen.
I don't know how many times I've sung that old song, what'll it be when we get over yonder and crown him King of Kings and Lord of all. I got to reading in Colossians, you're a little bit late.
Yeah.
I was kind of wondering just exactly who had the dimensions to hammer out that crown, and we would think it'd be worthy to put on his head. Now that's how stupid
Yeah. Amen.
that logic gets into being,
Yeah.
And it's a lot more comforting
Amen.
to have a hope being within this kingdom than. And if anybody wants to be a dispensationalist, I remember preaching down at Flint River. I told a fellow down there that had dispensational tendencies, I'd be glad to give him Saddam Hussein and Khomeini and all them boys over there. You have them over there. I want to stick to little villages up in Kentucky.
Gracie, no.
That'll work.
Why are you going to sleep?
No. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's a joyous time when the Lord starts revealing those things to you.
It
Yes, it
certainly is.
Well, I tell you what, brother, and I don't know about you all, but and I hope I got rid of a good portion. I don't believe I have all of it, but bringing that baggage out of Egypt. And that's exactly what it is. And Brother Poole said it all. He said, it's just like this. Anything out of Zion is Babylon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I know exactly what you mean, brother. I feel like every day there's something that the Lord is pruning in me that I realized didn't need to be there.
Amen, brother.
Mm-hmm.
I will
And
never get through it. I don't believe.
amen. And there are so many things that, maybe from people who meant good, I don't know, but in different churches, Episcopal and otherwise, I was taught one thing, and I'm somebody who tries to give people the benefit of the doubt, and sometimes without not enough scrutiny sometimes. And I find out later down the road, well, that wasn't from God. And then he shows me, oh, this is the way, walk in this.
Yeah.
Amen.
And
And then you don't forget it.
that's right. That's
Right.
right.
Well, dear brother, and I read Brother Robert a little bit more than necessary, but I tell you, I doubt there's another man on the face of the earth that I love and respect anymore.
Amen.
And I can do it, but if you do it, I'll come after you.
Yes, Brother John Special. I'll grant you
Yeah. Special education, Bob. I got to ride the short bus.
that. He's special. I love Brother Fulton too, but well, I found what deal was. I love Brother Fulton. We agreed, had some great conversations, but me and Brother John just hit it off even more. And thank the
You
Lord
see?
it continued.
Yeah.
The fellowship has continued over the years.
Yeah. I know when I met Brother John, of all the people there, I felt the closest to Brother Elder Napier.
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never said anything, but that's how I felt. Was always happy to see him.
That's come from not knowing, I guess, brother.
It wouldn't beat us a couple of redneck preachers that we love, right?
Now you're getting there.
Yeah, you might be.
To me, it's more important when a preacher speaks, not like the fancy preachers we had in New York City, because they were full of themselves. Were a simple declaration of faith that you could hear in their speech pattern was meant more to me than all the fancy preachers in the world. Brother Adam, we got into a debate, and he was comparing Norman Vincent Peale to Joyce Myers. I said, I can't stand Norman Vincent Peale. I can't stomach him. They're not at all alike. I mean, she's not a real preacher. She's a motivational speaker. But Norman Vincent Peale, the art of positive thinking, well, I'm positive if I keep going this way, I'm going to hell.
Okay.
I have the overwhelming desire to slap you on both sides of your face. That's Peale. Never had respect for him. Never.
I was told a story a number of years ago about this great orator that came into a place, and people just kind of hung on his every word. And he told the audience one night, he said, he called an old farmer up on the stage, and he said, I'm going to show you the difference between a orator and a speaker. So they took Psalm 23, and the man read the psalm in his eloquent way. And when he got done, there was cheering and clapping and all the stuff. And the old farmer, he quoted, or he actually read the 23rd Psalm. When he got done, there wasn't a dry eye in the building.
Wonderful.
And the orator finally put his arm around him and said, folks, you saw the difference. I knew the Psalm. This man knew the Savior.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I tell you, it does you good to go out and talk to an old farmer that's been a shepherd
Amen.
and learn a little bit about sheep. And I asked you all a question. Did any of you ever see a sheep doing tricks in a circus? Well, you ain't going to be doing tricks in front of the public either. We are of the poorest illustration of the most dependent creature that God ever created.
Right.
A shepherd will tell you, you got to watch him when he goes to the creek. A sheep's got no better sense than to jump in there and drink from water flowing downstream and drown yourself. That's why it says beside the still waters. And back early on, and this might seem out of place, but I was with a Old Providence Church over in Gallia County, Ohio, which was established in 1830, and their deacon was a school principal, but he was a farmer and a shepherd. And I tell you what, I got an education just watching him and listening to him talk about taking care of his little flock. Rather humbling. I mean, I don't believe you get that in a seminary, but a true shepherd cares for each one of them sheep, and they know his name, and the stranger's voice they will not follow. Now, that goes long and deep.
Mhm.
The voice of the shepherd, his flock shall convene and lead them to pastures, all verdant and green. But unto a stranger they will not draw near, who calls to deceive them, lo here and lo there. 172 in the Goebel book. That's a good hymn. He calls them by name, and before them he goes to guide, guard, and succor his lambs from their foes. And glory to Jesus, his church is his care, though oft they do halt twixt lo here and lo there.
There was a Elder Baker told me one time, now whether he saw this or somebody else told him, I don't know. But this guy or he was over in Israel and on one of those tours, and out in a green pasture, there was a man driving a bunch of sheep. So he asked him about it, he said, I always understood that the shepherd walked before and they follow. And the guide said they do. Said the difference here, that's not the shepherd, that's the butcher.
Oh my. Oh my.
I missed it. That's not the shepherd, that's the who?
Butcher.
But
Oh. Oh, boy.
Yeah.
factual or not, it's a good illustration. I'll say that, brother.
It is.
Yes.
A couple of years back, I was at a conference for animals in disaster after you have a hurricane or whatever where it destroys the neighborhood, and they was teaching us how to do herd inspections on cows and horses and sheep. Wow.
Learn a little about yourself.
Pardon me, brother. But it was this this head veterinarian with the state of Virginia was telling us that you might go out in a pasture and you see a bunch of sheep out in the pasture in a swift flowing stream. And you drive on by and say, well, they got plenty of water and plenty to eat and go on. But then he said, you need to know that sheep won't drink from swift running water. Wow. And Lord, it got a hold of me. Wow. He leadeth me beside the still waters.
Amen.
He actually said sheep would stand beside of a swift running stream and thirst to death before they drank. And I said, oh my God, that's where God leads his people to, the still water. And pardon me, but it's wonderful to know that we have a hope in an all-loving God.
Amen.
That we are babes to, and that he looks after us. And needless to say, in that class I was in, I didn't hear no more after he said that. I was thinking about the 23rd Psalm. That whole Psalm, when I was growing up, we recited that thing, and I looked at it like the Lord is my shepherd. All I seen was my and me and all that. But the day that I seen that it was talking about God Almighty, all of the works was his, that he done. The Lord is my shepherd. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He's got a place fixed for me to take care of me. And he leadeth me beside the still waters where I need to get my nourishment and my water. It's wonderful. And he restores my soul. It ain't a thing I can do to restore nothing. I can't even have faith if he didn't give it to me.
Amen.
And Lord, I wouldn't even have my hope if he hadn't put that in my mind too.
Yep.
It's a precious thing, brother. And I'm so glad I get to listen to y'all and see what the Lord's give you too.
And
I
Brother
remember
Bo-
one time when I was first called to speak, in the verse there that says, yea, though I walk through the shadow of death, valley of the shadow of death, one of our old elders spoke up and he said, son, that's where we walk every day.
Amen.
But the Lord's going to look after us. And, but that's precious. The still waters. I didn't know that until then, that sheep won't drink from a swift running stream. They got to have it. And my God has prepared it for his people.
Mhm.
And it's all through revelation, and he gives it to us when we need it, and gets us by. It's there's over I forget where it's at now. I was looking at it a while ago. I'll share something with you that my son brought to mind. When they were stoning Stephen, they laid the cloaks at the feet of one called Saul, and they said something about and they stoned Stephen, calling upon God and saying, Lord Jesus, receive my spirit. One of y'all mentioned a while ago that if this thing goes bad and if we lose our life, God's already looking after us. He'll give you the grace to die in if we're his.
Right.
Mhm.
And it said they stoned Stephen, calling upon God, saying, Lord Jesus, receive my spirit. But verse 60, I take it as being what Stephen said. He knelt down and cried with a loud voice, Lord, lay not this sin to their charge. And when he had said this, he fell asleep. My son told me, he said, from reading that he didn't believe Stephen felt the first stone hit him. He fell asleep in the arms of Jesus.
Mm. Amen.
He gave him that grace.
Mhm.
But
Brother Roswell,
yes,
he prepares the table in the presence of mine enemies.
Enemies.
Stephen
Amen.
was feasting. He was feasting
yes, sir. Yes.
on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
We got to lay this flesh down sometimes. And I
Mhm.
take no pleasure in anybody's demise, nor neither do I ever try to render a judgment how somebody went out of this world. That's between God and them.
Amen.
The thing of it is, he prepares a table in the presence of mine. You got to get away from all this, get to the presence of the Lord.
That's right.
It don't say that in the 23rd Psalm. It says he'll prepare it in the presence of them.
Yep.
They don't know what we're feasting on. Wouldn't do them no good if they did.
Right.
Mhm.
It wouldn't. No, sir. Oh, y'all mentioned Brother Paul Hopkins last week.
Yes.
His family called in. We was told by his brother that his children was calling in hospice and talking to him about palliative care and so on. And they did Friday. Brother Paul, I think, has been reconciled to his illness from the time they told him he had it, because I've heard him say that, whatever the Lord's will is, and he's put up a fight. The Lord's given him strength to do it. But over the weekend, he went back to Roanoke Hospital, Sunday or Monday one, and he came back home today. They drawed some fluid off of him, and he wasn't in pain like he was. And but I understand he's already made his arrangements and where he'll be buried. But we know God's will, he can heal him if it be his will. But that's where Brother Paul, the state he's in now. And his wife's not doing too well either. She, what did it say she had?
She had an asthma attack.
She had an asthma attack last night and having trouble breathing. But if you're given a mind to, when you say your prayers, call their name. May God reconcile them to this and give them some relief, because I know it's a hard thing to go through.
Well, my dear brethren, I've enjoyed this. I've been edified by it, and thank you for your fellowship. I have to get up really early in the morning, so I'll say good night.
All right.
All right,
Give her
Brother
love to
Doug.
Sister Teresa, brother.
Yes,
I sure will, brother.
do that.
Thank you very much.
All right,
Right.
Lord willing, we'll see you next week.
Lord willing, we certainly will.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Good night. It's always sweet to hear the testimony of the saints in simplicity. And it just touches my heart to listen to it
Yes, sir.
Amen.
without fancy speech, no big $20 words. You know, I hate those theological terms. You know, you want to know what I believe? Just ask me. You don't have to read a confession of faith. Just ask me.
That's right.
You may not like the answer you get, but I'll be honest, you know. And if I'm wrong, point to me wrong in the scripture. Don't look at confessions and you know, how you feel. I feel bad about that. You know, I don't feel that it's right. Well, that's fine. That's your feelings. I remember once I was talking to an Orthodox Jew, and I said to him, "What religion is God?" He stared at me like, what are they called, deer in the headlights, and just stared at me. He couldn't answer me. God doesn't have. He doesn't need a religion.
Mm-mm.
He's above our laws that, you know, he has placed for man, and we can't keep them. Jesus can.
Right.
God, he did.
Yes, sir.
And he did very well, because he was a perfect sacrifice. And we, I hope, are the eternal children. Always have been in Christ and always will be in Christ. The only one that he said that he lost was Judas, but he really was not his.
That's
'Cause
right.
Judas was a devil from the beginning.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I
The
believe that.
scriptures might be fulfilled.
Mm-hmm. Amen, Brother Napier. Yeah.
But
He
Jesus
was
still
born
called
for
him
that.
friend.
I'm sorry?
But Jesus called him friend.
No,
That's always been perplexing to me.
that's perplexing to me now. Well,
Well, he treated him with civility no matter what.
right,
And,
right.
you know, it's a scareful thing when you say you want to hear the words of the Lord. He looked at him and said, "Go do what thou must." And brethren, I'm telling you, that takes the timbers out from underneath me.
Oh, yeah.
Boy, don't it though? Mm.
Oh,
Go and do what thou hast to do and do it quickly.
yes.
Mm.
And he didn't have to twist his arm,
No,
but he knew exactly everything was clockwork, going exactly like it should be. But
Mhm.
we're a sorry lot, I'll tell you that, brother.
Oh, yeah.
And he
He
knew it
could've-
all. He knew that all that before the foundation of the world.
Yes.
He is eternity. That's a tough one.
Judas is identified as that one who saw no desire in him that he should be desired, no beauty in him.
Yes. And then you take a staunch stalwart by the name of Peter.
Yep.
All it done there was just took a rooster to bring him down.
Mm.
So, yeah. We not much to brag about, dear brethren. What has a man got that he did not receive? We can't contribute. We're just recipients of the crumbs of mercy from the master's table.
Yes, sir.
Sorry.
Mm.
Even Apostle Paul, when as hard as he worked, said, "Yet not I, but the grace of Christ with me."
Yes.
There ain't
Not I, it was he that worketh in me. The least of the least, he said.
Yes, sir.
And where can you get a better commentary on the Pentateuch in the book of Hebrews? I love him for doing that.
Yeah, he did.
John, I got a question. Chuck,
Yeah.
you're know the Hebrew language, right?
Yes,
Well,
not perfectly, but yes.
okay, there's a guy named Caleb was there with the Jews when they come out of Egypt. Caleb.
Yes.
Does
Yeah.
Caleb mean dog? Is that interpretation? Some preacher told me that, but I couldn't prove it. One.
Yes, it does. It means dog.
Okay, so he was correct. Okay.
Yeah, he was correct. Yeah.
And even the dogs munch on the crumbs from the master's table, right?
Yeah.
There's hope
But
for me.
a dog is faithful.
Oh, I raised dogs. I can tell you all about dogs. Never raised a sheep, but dog, yeah, and cows, ooh. And horses. And horses are the hardest headed animal there ever was, John.
No, not back off on that.
Tell me one more.
I've never seen a horse that lied to a man. You may not understand him though. Right, Brother Boswell?
That's right. Yes, sir. Woo.
I was pretty much
Oh.
born and raised in Chesapeake City, Maryland, and Mr. DuPont had them horse races and E.P. Taylor, and they was always wanting to go to Kentucky because there's a big horse race out there. And so I had to work around some of them thoroughbreds. And them things, you turn your back on them things and bite you right on the neck. They're a mean animal.
They make a lot of money, but they're not family pets.
Oh,
Them thoroughbreds has got big feet and little brains.
oh.
Well, they maybe got big brains and know who to pick on to get out of it.
Good day. But once you look them in the eye, they'd stay back. But you turn your back on them, it come right get you. But,
They can hurt you too. Yeah.
oh yeah. Well,
Bite your nose off, bite your ears off.
I never
Lay you to rest with one hoof.
Yeah.
I don't think they understood that, but maybe they did. I don't know. I didn't hang around too long.
We got a friend that rides those Tennessee Walkers, and she was raised up with them. But the one that she rode the most a few years ago, it reached over the fence and bit her on the thumb and was trying to drag her in the stall with him. And her daddy got a 2x4 to his head and stopped it. But,
Wow.
yeah. But, the old pleasure horse is usually pretty smart and good to have around.
They got their limitations, but a lot of it is, I attribute more to our ignorance of understanding and
Yeah.
thinking that they should understand us. We got to understand them.
Right.
What is, Brother Napier, what's the name of your black horse?
Carlos,
I love Carlos.
no,
He
you like
kept
Chrome.
eating- He was eating his hay. Remember when you took me to see him? And he kept eyeballing me like, okay, what's this one want?
Not much gets by him, John.
Brother, I probably need to go to bed. I gotta get up off early as well.
Well,
Brother Devin.
Brother Devin, good,
I'm
good
going.
that you were with us.
Brother Devin, one question, if you don't mind. Where did you hail from in Kentucky, brother?
I started off in Richmond, but my family is from Salyersville, over near sort of towards Pike County.
You West Liberty and about 20 miles from Grayson, 30 miles from Grayson.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Well, love you, dear brother, but I can tell you as a flatlander, you didn't have too much of the mountain brogue in you.
Yeah, it's more the foothills over there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, are you from Kentucky or West Virginia?
I live at Grayson, Kentucky.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. I've got family up there.
Well, let's holler some of these days and see what happens.
That's right. That's right.
Yes.
Well,
Well,
I've enjoyed it, brethren. Thank you for having me around.
All right, Lord willing, see you
Good
next
night,
week.
brother.
Yeah.
I'm
Lord
talking
willing.
to you
Enjoyed it, Brother
later.
Devin.
Pardon?
Enjoyed it. You're on the path.
Well, by God's grace. Y'all take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Yeah, everyone, I'm gonna cut out too, but I've
All
enjoyed
right, Brother Eric.
the conversation.
Good to see you, brother.
I'm getting pretty sleepy now, so hope to see you all in the morning at the
Lord
meeting.
willing. Lord willing. Good night.
Yeah, Lord willing. Good night.
Well,
Right.
we all drifting out one by one.
Yeah, but it was a good night.
Good night. This is good conversation.
Yes, amen.
This is, brother, and I can't help but think this is really what it's all about, more than sermonizing and things like that. I think this is what it's all about. We're
Hey,
getting a
Brother
little-
John, here, I got a question for you if you got the time. Hello,
Hello?
Brother Neighbor.
Wait.
Yes.
That path you was talking about, that ain't the path to the outhouse, is it?
No, that's kind of personal, brother.
Well, but it's very important. You don't want to trip and fall.
Well, you might better take a light with you too. You may need to get out.
I up in Chesapeake City, I still got a double seater there, and I won't
Oh,
give
you're uptown.
Oh yeah, one hole's a little closer to the front than the back.
Yeah, I got,
So we understand. We understand. You know. different-
anatomy.
Just joking.
Brother John,
Yeah.
your assembly, what days does it meet on?
Lord wills, we meet every Sunday.
Every Sunday? Did you say something about Huntington?
Yes,
Is that where you meet?
yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Now okay, folks, give me just 1 minute because you can't wind this down too quick. We started out at South Point, and
Which is
due
in
to
Ohio.
Yeah.
South Point, Ohio, and due to age and the labors of keeping up the estate, we decided to sell the meeting place. We've been approached with a pretty good offer, which we did, and it was taxing on Brother Fulton. I was on the road. I drove truck for 40 years, and we started meeting in a doctor's office, waiting room. That's pretty nice, people. That's real good, and that lasted quite some time. And then this doctor sold his practice out. And one of the brethren, Brother Michael Fulton, says, well, I've got a house down here in Huntington that we can meet in down there. And I said, well, that would work for me. And I walked in. He's telling me about it. And I said, Brother Mike, does that have a archway between the living room and the other room instead of a squared off entrance? And he said, yeah. I said, mm-hmm. I believe that's the house I was born in.
Really?
Yeah. Go figure that, brother. So I'm pretty well sure I'm going out where I came in.
Oh, boy.
The interstate had taken that house and they moved it from its location where it was when I was born across the road. And some things happen, you just shut up and go on. That's the way it's meant to be.
Right. Well, I heard you say Huntington, so that's the reason I was asking. And what time do you meet?
Well, 10:30. We're kind of like Brother Poole was. Y'all can start singing about 10:30, but 11 o'clock we will start preaching.
I got you.
And Brother Fulton's son, Michael, has been ordained, and we generally have he and I both speak on Sundays, and the Lord has blessed him mightily. I wish I could have had a background starting off like the Lord has privileged him to have experienced. My life's been thrown away instead of collecting together a lot.
But you both speak well, Brother Napier.
Well,
I
thank you, Brother
enjoy
John. It's
you as
very
much-
humbling.
I enjoy you just as much as I enjoy listening to Brother Mike.
And I'll not tell him that. He's a gifted brother.
Yes, I see you both go up kind of uncomfortable. And after a few minutes, that discomfort seems to go away and you speak with power. Not your own power, the power of God, the power of Jesus speaking
Yep.
through you.
That's what Brother Boswell was talking about. If the preacher comes, you get blessed. If you don't, you better just run away and sit down.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. Yep.
Brother Lackey,
Yo.
isn't that what Sister Wood used to yell at her husband when he was on the stand?
She used to yell
Was it
several
her?
things at him from what I've been told. Sit down, John. You ain't got no light nor liberty either one right now.
Oh, no. Woo-hoo.
That's what
That's
I
when I
always heard. I don't know. I was never there when that happened.
We might turn over and said, let your women remain silent in the church. Of course, he'd probably get a cold supper after that, wouldn't he?
If he got any.
Yeah.
That's right. God bless him.
Oh, mercy.
The Lord leads us in strange ways sometimes in our
Yeah.
thinking. But always exactly the way he has determined it.
Yes.
And you go exactly where you need to be.
Not every
Right.
apostle was a Nepal, was they? They
No?
spoke different, they wrote different,
Mhm,
all part of that body.
mhm.
Well, said the Lord suffered without the camp.
Yeah.
And I think the old Baptists are people that have been placed outside the camp of so-called Christianity for their belief and hold to the doctrine, and it's Jesus only or nothing. And
Amen.
it has separated us, not because we necessarily wanted to, but because we had to.
Mhm.
And servant's no greater than the master. So if I feel quite comfortable not being in the throng of the big crowds, and I'd rather be with 2 or 3 that knew the Lord than 2,000 and having the Mormon Tabernacle Choir singing and people getting worked up in the flesh.
Mhm.
Sensualism.
Mm.
That's what a guy said. You got to have that good song service to get everybody in the mood to worship.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Well, Brother Wayne,
Make up, but you can't work up the spirit.
I had to kind of bow away from that. You know, I love good singing. I love, like I said, if I had a 4-pound hammer and a anvil, or an anvil and a 4-pound shop handle, I'd take Brother Robert's left hand and work on it. I love music. He's gifted to it. And I got to admit, I'm a little envious, a little jealous and all that.
Yep.
And my driving has just absolutely destroyed my hearing. And they've tried to be kind to me, but they told me that I sing everything in the key of L, or at least that's what it sounds like.
Oh, no.
Oh, mercy.
Brother Napier, just lower your voice a little bit and sing bass, because there ain't no notes on the scale for the bass man.
Well, I'm pretty well there already. Robert's even looked at me funny. I think it's wonderful that Brother Robert has been blessed with the gift and exercised it and developed it in his vocal talents. And not only that, we like a lot of music's very similar until I was over at his house in Salisbury and I looked at this sheet music. It was on this stand. And it looked to me like somebody had shot it with a double barrel shotgun. And I said, Brother Robert, what's that? He said, well, that was a piece I was practicing on my classical guitar for NPR audition. And I thought, where did he come from? You get G, C, and D, man. You at the head of the class over here in Kentucky.
3 chords, forget it.
Oh, goodness. Yeah.
It'd be nice to me if the Lord in his providence and his grace would allow us to get together physically sometime.
I hope so.
Just have a good old
Mhm.
fellowship with each other. Hear some good preaching.
Amen.
Yeah, amen. That'd be nice.
We haven't had one for about 5 years, so it might be the Lord might impress it upon us.
I hope he does. I do.
And those have been glorious too, brethren. We had the 20th anniversary of our Constitution. I believe Brother Wickenhoff was there. As last time I believe I got to hear Brother Chet preach. And I am telling you, the love was deep water. It was something to wade in. You wasn't in the ankles and up to the thigh. You had to swim in it. It was so good and refreshing.
I'll tell you what, go online and listen to Chet Dirks preach a sermon called Keep His Commandments. That thing thrilled my heart when I heard that one. It is one of the great messages that I've heard.
Well, it's great to be impressed with the testimony of the brethren.
Well, if you all want to come on down here to Florida,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
come on down. I got a 4-bedroom house down here and I can sleep out back, so it don't bother me none, but or the car. And come on down and you're welcome if you want to travel that far. But I generally take an airplane here at Fort Myers Airport, which is about an hour from me, and go to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, to an airport up there, and my family picks me up because we're up in the corner of Maryland, next to Delaware there. And it's usually about $17, $18, $20. You can't hardly fill your tank up for that.
You cannot.
And I got a little van here to pick up, probably carry about eight or nine people. Be glad to have you down here if you'd like. You might not like my cooking, but you'll make out.
We'll adapt.
What's that?
I said, we'll adapt.
We'll adapt.
And,
Don't look like you're underfed, Brother Cliff.
well, I'm getting a little heavier now, getting older, but I don't do as much. But you guys know what what Spam is, and you put that in a pan, and we won't starve.
That's a delicate.
You eat grit? Do you guys eat grits for breakfast?
Yeah.
Oh,
Love grit.
oh, well, you will be right home.
Yeah, love grits. Sausage, biscuits, and gravy.
There you go.
Too much work. I don't like to work too much on my food. I like to eat, but fixing it is not really my.
My wife quit fixing it just for me and her, so she always fixes it when the kids come, so I sneak a call and invite them about every other week.
Wise man. Yeah, wise man. But there's a few of them want to come down here and cook for me, and I said, man, stay on home. But when they got them big diamond rings on their hand, I don't know how they cook.
Yeah. Be a lot of gravy stored in those.
There you go.
Well, maybe stirring some of them diamond dust in there. Anyway, it sounds like a great idea, and anybody that is down this way, get in touch with me.
Where exactly in Florida?
Welcome here.
Exactly in Florida are you, Cliff?
What's
Where,
that?
where exactly in Florida? Where are you?
I live in Charlotte County, about 2 miles south of Sarasota. It's called
Sarasota.
Englewood, Florida.
Englewood, Florida.
Yeah.
My son's across the state from you. My
Oh,
son's
yeah.
over in St. John. He's across the state from you.
It generally takes me, I go up to some bluegrass festivals up that way, Palatka, and that's not even to where your boy's at, but it's 4.5, 5 hours.
Yeah,
He's driving just up there.
Yep.
So,
I think he's a few hours from Orlando. And I know they go to Fort Myers every once in a while.
oh, that's 1 hour south of me.
Oh, it is? Okay.
So I'm between Tampa and Fort Myers, roughly. But,
Well, you know what they call the state of Florida, don't you, Brother Cliff?
wow.
God's waiting room.
Well, I thought I was going to meet him in Maryland. So
You just wait your call. That's
wasn't
where
my
they all
time.
go. Drop off the scene.
And I scratched my head, and she got no hair there, but scratched my head and said, Lord, what do you keep me around here for? But he got something in mind, but I don't know what it is.
I understand, brother.
Maybe he'll reveal it someday.
Yes.
I was up in Maryland there to a guy that fixes guitars and stuff. And I bought some different, I like a Gibson guitar. I know you guys probably Martin, Kentucky people play them Martins, but I'm a Gibson man. But anyway, he was telling me about his stepdaughter was had some kind of a rare disease or something of a cancerous thing or something. And the doctor, he says the doctors gave her this medicine and cured her. And I said, Dean, who are you talking to? I said, Lord fixed her. Don't. And of course he was talking about prayer and all the stuff them boys do, you know, and which is okay. No argument. But I said, Dean, don't talk to me like that. Them doctors, sometimes they're the dumbest people I've ever met. I don't know about you. I hope you guys ain't doctors. But the doctor I got down here, I come in and met him, you know, and went through the, you know, he taps you and checks you. And I said, well, doctor, I said, let me just tell you how I am so you don't have to deal with me. You know, we got to get a understanding. I said, God's taking care of me. He's going to use you to give me a prescription or whatever I think I need or whatever you think we need. He reached up and brought his Bible down and said, do you know you're elect before the foundation of the world? I said, yes, indeed I do. You know, it's the first doctor I ever met that pulled his Bible down and wanted to discuss scripture with me.
You were blessed.
Well, it was Doc May. Of course, I'm expecting to, you know, be a hard guy. You know.
Yeah. When I had my quadruple bypass, the doctor there in Wake Hospital in Raleigh, North Carolina, surprised me. Came in before the surgery, sat by my bed, took me by the hand, bowed his head, and had a word of prayer.
Amen.
I don't know what he was, you know. I did discuss it with him, but I did appreciate that. At least he was acknowledging that I was in God's hands.
Yes.
That's the first doctor I ever, reached up and pulled the Bible down and said, do you realize you're elect before the foundation of the world? I said,
I'd
yes,
like to
sir.
hear that. I'd talk his ear off.
Well, he keeps saying he wants to call me and discuss things because they don't get the absolute authority God over all things is not a popular subject here in Florida.
Sure.
Really?
Goodness.
In Florida?
Surprise, surprise.
But he says, you know, he's because I like to talk about the say, when I study, I don't study creeds, obviously, or confessions, whatever you say, but I study my Bible. And when I study my Bible, a lot of times I'll be reading about somebody and I'll say, I sort of drift into almost like I went into their existence, Samson and all. And I'm trying to fathom the darkness he seen when them Philistines poked his eyes out. And he knew he'd done wrong, and he knew it was in darkness. And it reminds me that Mike Fulton, I think, John, you sent me that. He said he was talking about darkness in Egypt. He said they could feel it. Man, yeah, I know what it is. Anyway, that was just a good thing. But I put myself in their place, and people said I'm too heavenly minded to be any earthly good. But I learn a lot from the scriptures by reading the scriptures and putting myself into place. I mean, I believe I was with Jesus when he was crucified. I believe I was with him when he rose. And people say, you're crazy, and I may be talking too much, but I do believe that. And that's the way I study the Bible. I put myself in there because.
Brother Cliff, I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
You was tied up there with Samson. When did Delilah get a hold of you?
I've met more Delilahs that I can't even speak about it.
Lost the locks of your head, brother.
Listen. I sort of brought up sort of a harder way, most folks have, but a young child in jeopardy, I'd give my life for him, I do believe. And a woman that tells me a sad story, I'm a sucker for it. But we're all made certain ways, right?
Right.
And I'm sure none of you fellas ever got fooled.
That's right.
Right.
I've been fooled more times than I want to admit to.
But there's always a lesson in it, John.
Yes.
It is. Amen. Yeah.
By the way, what religion was God? I never got the answer to that question.
He has no religion.
Oh,
God is above religion. He doesn't need religion to guide him. He's above religion. The Orthodox Jew kind of like stared at me like, huh? With their laws, and you have to do this. If you want to see a real duty faith lesson, sit in a meeting with the Orthodox. By the time you're done, I would just want to pull the rest of the little hair that I have, because it's never good enough. And it's always you got to do more, and you have to be as holy as God. Okay.
I'm out.
So I would get on their nerves, and I know Lackey would be surprised at that, but I used to get on their nerves.
well, John, I do know you pretty good.
I would get on. We would debate Christ as the Messiah. I would discuss it with them. And I remember once telling the rabbi, I was sitting in the meeting, very long meeting, 4 or 5 hours long. And finally we all got up and I said, do you realize what you just said today? No, you bore testimony of Jesus Christ. You did. I don't remember what he said or how he said it, but he did. I never saw anybody look so scared in my life. He just looked at me like, what? But then again, God spoke out of Balaam's ass. So I guess he could do it with a person. And Balaam's ass didn't know what he was saying.
Don't be too sure.
Brother Perepchuk,
Yes, sir.
as Orthodox Jews, What is there a conformed opinion in this notion about a rebuilding of the temple and the reinstituting of sacrifices?
They believe that when the Messiah comes, not that he's already come, but when he comes, he's going to rebuild the temple and he's going to restart the sacrifices again.
Uh-huh.
They have all the implements ready to build the temple. As a matter of fact, I was watching a program on one of the history channels, and part of the temple is underground that they built.
Mhm.
They got the audience, not the audience, but the platform for the elders of the congregation. They, they have to find a red heifer cow, and it cannot have even a black spot on it, like a black hair.
Red heifers.
Yeah.
Red heifers, yes.
There's Reformed Jews too, correct?
Yes, Reformed are very liberal.
They don't accept that. When I talked to in Mississippi one time,
Mhm.
I brought it up because I figured it'd be a standard view of and he
Mm-mm.
said, no, we don't believe that. So the Reformed, or at least that particular person of the Reformed, had a temple called Bethel. I don't remember now exactly what the other was, but
Mhm.
and I asked him about that because I was studying those issues back then. And he said, no, we don't believe in that. We think that's nonsense. So
You know what's funny about the Orthodox? You have two Orthodox debating, not fighting, but debating. As you got two Orthodox, you have 6 opinions. It's more like schizophrenia than anything else.
I'd like to see that. Two
Oh.
people, 6 opinions.
I mean, I was pointing to something. It was clear. It was undisputable. It was just clear. I can't remember what I was reading, and I mentioned it to this guy that I study with. He said, "Well, that's one theory." And he said, "Well, there's a multitude of different opinions about that verse." And I went, "What?"
Yeah.
It's very clear. How could you have a multitude of opinions when it's clear? But that's how they studied. That's how they debate,
Yeah.
Mhm. So I know that they've got the temple ready. It's underground. They've got the breastplates, the garments. They have a lot of what they're going to need for the temple. They, as a matter of fact, 2 years ago, tried to perform the sacrifice next to the Wailing Wall. And they kept lighting the fire to perform it, and the fire kept going out. They couldn't keep the fire going.
Is it true that on the Temple Mount now there stands a Muslim mosque?
Oh yeah. Mhm. Well, that's there's different opinions on that. What they consider the Wailing Wall, where that mosque is,
Uh-huh.
they consider that used to be a Roman fortress, not the temple,
I see.
because the temple was near running water, and there's no running water on that site. With all the sacrifices, they would have to wash that constantly, that blood. And they and there's the Orthodox are getting mad because they're saying this is not the wall, this is not where the temple was.
I got you.
It was over here, which makes more sense. It's near the city of David. So it's very strange. I've heard both arguments, and it gets very confusing.
Yeah. Well, I was just curious what the Orthodox thought about it because I'd never really talked to an Orthodox Jew.
Well, they wouldn't feel comfortable with you because you're not a Jew. I'm
yeah.
considered Jewish because my mother was Jewish.
I got you.
I keep telling them I'm a Christian also. No, you're not. You're just Jewish. So after a while, okay. And the rabbi would always tell me, anytime you want to talk about it, you could come to me and talk about it. Okay. You know, he didn't get mad at me. He never got mad at me. You know, I can listen to Christian people like Brother Gabriel. We're people that consider him brethren among the sovereign grace. Talk to him as if he was a redheaded stepchild. I mean, one time I got so angry at the way they were texting him back that I thought, are these people out of their minds? You know, it's kind of pathetic when an Orthodox Jew, unregenerate, for the time being at least, has more compassion for another Jew than a Christian, a so-called Christian, has for another Christian.
Yeah.
You know, it's and I'm sure the rabbi at times wanted to choke me, but he wouldn't dare. Yeah. Yes, so that's, you know, the you know, from what I've understood from them, that's what they're looking for.
Okay.
You know, and every year when they have the Passover supper, when they're done, they say next year in Jerusalem.
I got you.
Yeah.
I think I read that somewhere. Yeah.
The next year in Jerusalem. You know, the Orthodox, well, and this also, they need a prophet to help them build, to even start the temple. And then the Messiah has to come, and, you know, they consider this, it'll be the second temple. And I argued with them. I said, no, it's not. It's the third. Well, how do you see that? I said, well, there was Solomon's temple, and then it was rebuilt at, where was it? From Babylonian
Nehemiah and
invasion.
Ezra.
Yes. And the third one, you know, I said, but this is a third. No, that's the temple that Herod built. So I said, did they have a dedication to renew the dedication for the temple? Did they do it all 3 times? Yes. Well, then it's a new temple. Why are you rededicating it if it was always, you know, if it's the same temple? Because they rededicated after what's his name? Herod expanded on it. So. It was more of a history lesson almost than.
You think they got the Ark of the Covenant someplace?
No, I believe that's destroyed. It's gone.
Well, so they don't. You sure they're not hiding it there?
Well, they claim that under the Temple Mount, there are a lot of passageways that they could have hid it. You know, the Orthodox knowing, or the religious leaders of that time knowing that, you know, the city's about to be destroyed, could have spirited away into a lower chamber. I don't know. I don't think it was there when at the time of Christ. I'm not really sure, because it's mentioned in one book, and then after that it's never mentioned again. What is the name of the book what is the name of the Bible where the temple is last mentioned, Brother, or the Ark of the Covenant last mentioned, Brother Lackey?
I don't remember.
Never came back from Babylon, did it?
Well, there's in the victory frieze in Rome on the arch. It looks like somebody's carrying an ark.
Oh, really? I never saw that. Okay.
Yeah. There's now whether it's the same one, don't know, but they look like they're carrying it.
Well, I don't know, you guys probably wouldn't have noticed, there was a pope that lasted a month only, and he died suspiciously. And he wanted to return all of the things back to the Jews again. And I think that it's somewhere in the Vatican. They have a lot of the artifacts from Judaism. I could be wrong, but why did this particular Pope say he wants to return them back to them if they didn't have it? So I
Right.
don't know, and he died. They're not allowed to get, they're not allowed to do an autopsy. So he could have died from poison as well as natural death,
I remember that 1 month, Pope. I remember the incident.
I kind of felt bad for him because he seemed like a nice man. But for a Pope, no telling. Yeah.
Brother, and I'm gonna have to call it a night too.
Yep, I think I am as well.
By the way, Brother Lackey, I want to tell you, I was running some errands this morning. I was listening to your program.
Yes,
I couldn't help but think when you was talking about the old silversmith and how they were worried about the profit they were going to lose off of. I remember having a radio broadcast for a couple of years, and I decided I'd preach on the truth about Christmas.
oh boy.
And I remember I was thinking this morning when you were talking, people in that time of year is just like that. They're not
Yes,
about the celebration. They're going to lose all their sales if you get rid of it. They're not going to make any money on it.
right.
I learned a long time ago, you want to make a man really angry, slap his God. And most of the people just think that little male Jesus in a cradle is their God.
Yes, I agree with you.
Yeah.
By the way, it was the only broadcast I ever did that they got so many complaints that the owner came and asked me to never preach on Christmas again.
Bless your heart.
Oh,
I
Lordy.
only gave them the facts that came right out of their newspaper.
There you go. Oh,
Good
well,
night, brethren. I've
good
enjoyed
night.
your company.
And Lord willing, we'll see y'all next week. Some of you
Enjoy
will
it, brother.
talk
Thanks for
tomorrow.
your time. Thanks y'all for your time. Enjoyed it.
And we'll see you.
Enjoy it.
Lord be with you and bless you.
You too, brother.
Right.
Good
Good
night.
night.